After my C-section, I woke up to my mother-in-law holding my baby. She's calling me, Mom, now, she smiled. My husband nodded, it's better this way. Too weak to move, I whispered, you'll regret this. Hours later, the hospital security footage was released, and they were dragged away in handcuffs. I never thought I would wake up after childbirth to find another woman trying to take my place. I had an emergency C-section at Mount Sinai Hospital in New York City. Everything happened so fast. One minute, I was being rushed into surgery. The next, I was drifting in and out of consciousness, the voices of nurses echoing somewhere in the background. The baby's here. It's a girl. She's healthy. Then, silence. I don't know how long I was out. It could have been minutes or hours. But when I finally opened my eyes, the first thing I saw wasn't my baby in my arms. It was Joyce, my mother-in-law, and she was holding my daughter like she was hers. I was groggy. My whole body felt heavy, my arms numb, my stomach tight from the stitches. The room smelled sterile, the beeping of the monitors steady. I tried to lift my head, but my body wouldn't cooperate. Joyce sat in the chair next to my hospital bed, rocking my baby gently. Too gently. Like she had been doing it for hours. She looked down at my daughter with something I can only describe as ownership. She turned to me and smiled. A real, warm, motherly smile. But it wasn't for me. She's calling me, Mom, now, she said softly, brushing her fingers over my baby's cheek. My brain struggled to catch up. What? Before I could even process what was happening, someone stepped into my peripheral vision. It was Mark, my husband. He stood next to Joyce, arms crossed over his chest, avoiding my gaze. It's better this way, he said. His voice was calm, too calm, like this was normal, like I had already agreed to it. My stomach twisted. My head pounded. My baby, was inches away from me, but Joyce was holding her like she belonged to her. I tried to move my arms. They were weak. I tried to sit up. My body refused. I forced my lips to move. My voice came out hoarse, barely above a whisper. You'll regret this. Joyce smiled again, as if I had said something adorable. She cradled my daughter closer, humming softly, like I wasn't even in the room. The first nurse who came to check on me, her name tag said Olivia, noticed something was off right away. How are we feeling, Mom? She asked. Before I could answer, Joyce laughed. Oh, she's fine, Joyce said, still rocking my baby. She just needs rest. Olivia's polite expression didn't change, but I saw the shift in her eyes. She looked at me. I must have looked like a wreck, helpless, scared, confused. Would you like to do skin to skin? Olivia asked me gently. My heart leaped. Yes, that's what I needed. My baby needed me. But before I could even open my mouth, Joyce answered for me. Oh, I already did that while she was out. I already did that. My blood ran cold. Olivia's head snapped toward her. I'm sorry. Joyce smiled. She needed that connection. You know, for bonding. I read about it. There was a long silence. Then Olivia turned to Mark. Sir, is this the mother? She asked, pointing at me. Mark hesitated. I don't know what was worse, Joyce acting like my baby was hers or Mark hesitating. Finally, he sighed. Yes, he muttered. But we talked about it. It's just better if Mom, Joyce, takes care of the baby for now. We talked about it? What the hell was he talking about? Something changed after that conversation. The nurses became more present, more watchful. They didn't say anything outright, but they were paying attention now. One nurse, Sarah, came in to adjust my fore. While she worked, she made small talk. So, she said casually, how's the first day of motherhood treating you? Joyce answered before I could. Oh, she's been sleeping through most of it, she said, with a soft chuckle. That's why I've been watching over the baby. Somebody has to. Sarah didn't even blink. She just nodded and finished with my fore. Then, as she turned to leave, she said, I'll let the doctor know. That's when I knew. They were onto her. That afternoon, a nurse came in and asked if I had been able to hold my baby yet. Joyce laughed again. Oh, there's no rush, she said. I've got her. The nurse didn't smile. Actually, it's important for the mother to have time with her newborn. Especially after a C-section. Joyce's grip on my baby tightened. She's sleeping, she said, her voice a little sharper. I don't want to wake her up. The nurse took a step forward. Ma'am, please hand the baby to her mother. Joyce hesitated. Then, for the first time since I woke up, I saw it. Fear. A flicker of something behind her eyes. It was quick, but it was there. She glanced at Mark. He shifted uncomfortably, but didn't say anything. The nurse didn't wait for permission. She reached forward and gently took my baby from Joyce's arms. Joyce sat there, frozen, like something had been stolen from her. That night, Olivia came back. She pretended to be casual, asking questions about my pain level, checking my stitches. But then, quietly, she asked, "Did you sign any paperwork?" I frowned. No. Her expression didn't change, but I saw her knuckles tighten around the clipboard. "Did you approve anyone else to act on your behalf?" I shook my head. My brain was still foggy, but something in her tone made my stomach twist. "Okay," she said softly. "Just rest. I'll be back later." She left the room. 10 minutes later, hospital security walked in. Two guards in navy uniforms, their expressions unreadable. They weren't rushing, but they weren't casual either. They knew something was wrong. One of them, a tall guy with a shaved head, glanced at Joyce, then at Mark. He held a clipboard. "Sir, ma'am, we need to verify some information," he said, voice firm but polite. Joyce's fingers twitched on the blanket in her lap. Mark shifted his weight. Neither of them spoke. The other guard, a woman with a sharp gaze, glanced at the baby now resting in my arms. "Who is the mother of this child?" she asked, looking directly at me. I licked my dry lips. "Me," I croaked. My voice was still weak, but I made sure to say it loud enough for everyone to hear. Joyce let out a fake laugh, too high-pitched. "Of course she's the mother," she said quickly. "I was just helping." She needed rest. The female guard didn't react. "You've been holding the child since she was born, correct?" Only because Joyce started, then stopped. She knew she had already said too much. The male guard flipped a page on the clipboard. "Ma'am, do you have any legal authority to act on the mother's behalf? Any signed documents?" Joyce's face twitched. No, but the female guard nodded slowly. "And Mr. Carter?" She turned to Mark. He paled at his last name being used. "Why, yeah. You were aware your mother was presenting herself as the primary caregiver?" Mark swallowed. He looked at Joyce, then at me, then at the baby. "Hi, I just thought she needed help." The air in the room changed. It was cracking open, unraveling. And then Olivia returned. She wasn't alone. A doctor and a second nurse were with her. And they had a file. The doctor, a middle-aged man with silver hair, adjusted his glasses. "Mrs. Carter, I need to ask you something important," he said to me. His voice was kind, but firm. "Did you consent to have your mother-in-law listed as the primary caregiver on hospital records?" My stomach turned to ice. "What?" My voice came out stronger this time. "No, I would never." The doctor sighed, like he had already expected that answer. "That's what I thought." He turned and handed a paper to the guard. The female guard scanned it, then looked at Joyce. "This document," she said, "was submitted an hour after the baby was born." Mark took a step back. What does it say?" The guard's eyes flicked to him, then back to Joyce. "It states that Joyce Carter is to be recognized as the primary guardian of the newborn, due to the mother's inability to care for the child." I felt the blood drain from my face. Joyce's mouth pressed into a thin line. "That's ridiculous." "Is it?" The guard held up the paper. "Because it has your signature on it." Joyce opened her mouth, then shut it. The male guard stepped closer. "Mrs. Carter," he said, addressing me. "Did you sign this document?" "Absolutely not." My voice shook, but my anger was rising. The doctor spoke up. "We checked your medical chart. At the time this form was submitted, you were still under anesthesia. There is no way you could have signed anything." The silence was deafening. Mark took another step back. His whole body was tense, like he was ready to run. "Joyce?" She laughed. Not a nervous laugh. Not an apologetic one. A mocking one. "I was doing what was best for the baby," she said, tilting her head. "She doesn't know how to be a mother." I raised Mark. "I know what I'm doing." The female guard didn't blink. "Forging legal documents is a crime, ma'am." Mark snapped. "I didn't know she did that," he blurted out, taking 2 big steps away from Joyce. "I thought it was just temporary. She told me it was just for the first few days." Joyce whirled on him. "Shut up, Mark." But Mark had already stepped into survival mode. He was pale, sweating. "I swear, I didn't know she was doing anything illegal." "I thought," the female guard raised a hand. "Enough." Joyce's lips curled. "Oh, grow up, Mark," she spat. "You've been useless since the day you got married. You never could handle responsibility." "I was fixing your mistake." My breath caught. "Your mistake." She was talking about our daughter. Mark's face twisted. "You said it was just temporary," he said again, his voice small. "Temporary?" Joyce repeated, her voice sharp. "You think she was ever going to be a good mother? She's barely capable of taking care of herself. You saw how weak she was during pregnancy. She doesn't have the instinct." "I do. I was saving the baby from a life of, that's enough," the male guard said sharply. For the first time, Joyce looked nervous. Then Olivia spoke up. "You also tried to change the birth certificate," she said. Mark froze. The doctor nodded. Yes. About an hour ago, a request was sent to the hospital administrator asking that the mother's name be removed from the birth certificate and replaced with Joyce Carter's name. The room went still. Joyce's face darkened. The female guard pulled out a radio. "We need NYPD down here," she said into it. Joyce's expression snapped. She lunged. "Not at me. At Mark. You weak little coward," she shrieked. "I did this for you. I did this for our family. And you're just standing there?" Mark flinched as she grabbed his arm, her nails digging into his skin. "Say something," she screamed. He ripped away from her. I'm sorry," he stammered. But he wasn't talking to her. He was talking to me. I didn't respond. I just held my daughter closer. Security stepped in, but Joyce wasn't done. She turned to me, eyes wild. "You don't deserve her," she hissed. Before she could do anything else, the male guard pulled out handcuffs. "Joyce Carter, you are under arrest for attempted forgery, medical fraud, and attempted kidnapping." Her face twisted in rage. "Mark," she snapped. "Do something." Mark just stood there. Joyce started struggling, but the guards held firm. And then, the hospital doors burst open. The hospital doors burst open. Two NYPD officers walked in, their presence shifting the energy in the room instantly. They weren't here to ask questions. They were here to take action. Joyce froze. Her face twisted, but for the first time, she didn't speak. Mark, on the other hand, started breathing fast, like reality had just smacked him in the face. His eyes darted between Joyce, me, and the baby. He looked ready to bolt. One of the officers, a tall man with dark eyes, pulled out a small notepad. "We have reason to believe an attempted abduction was in progress. Can someone explain what's going on here?" The hospital security guard stepped forward. "We have security footage and falsified paperwork." The mother, Mrs. Carter, was unconscious when a legal document was submitted listing her mother-in-law as the baby's guardian. There was also an attempt to alter the birth certificate. The officer's expression hardened. "And who submitted these?" "That would be Joyce Carter," the security guard said firmly. The officer's eyes locked onto Joyce. "Ma'am, is this true?" Joyce's jaw was clenched so tightly her lips had gone pale. "I don't have to answer that," she muttered. The officer nodded like he had expected that answer. "That's fine. We'll check the security footage." And that's when Joyce cracked. She suddenly turned to Mark, her eyes wide, desperate. "Tell them I was helping. Tell them." Mark's lips trembled. Joyce's voice turned sharp. "Mark, if they arrest me, you'll be next. You knew about everything. You let me handle it. They'll charge you too." The officers stilled. Mark paled. "No, I didn't sign anything. That was all you." But Joyce just laughed, shaking her head. "Do you think they'll believe that? The cameras saw you here every single day, letting me hold her, calling me her mother. You went along with it. You didn't stop me. That makes you just as guilty." Mark took a shaky step back. I didn't mean to, doesn't matter," Joyce snapped. "Intent doesn't mean a damn thing when it comes to the law." Mark looked like he was going to be sick. The officers exchanged a glance. "Mr. Carter, we're going to need you to come with us for questioning," one of them said. Mark broke. His whole body trembled, his eyes darting around the room like a trapped animal. "No," he whispered. No. This isn't how this was supposed to go." And then, in a single, pathetic moment, he did something I will never forget. He ran. It happened so fast, no one reacted right away. Mark bolted toward the door, shoving past one of the nurses. A chair tipped over. My heart jumped into my throat as I watched him sprint down the hallway, nurses gasping, security shouting. "Stop him," one of the officers yelled. But Mark was fast, too fast for someone who had been acting like a helpless bystander 5 minutes ago. He made it to the end of the hallway, pushing through a set of double doors. One of the officers took off after him. Joyce, still held by the security guard, let out a sharp bark of laughter. "Of course," she sneered. He never could handle consequences. The second officer turned back to her. "And you can?" Joyce smirked. "Watch me." Then she suddenly collapsed. It was too dramatic to be real. 1 second she was standing, the next, she was crumbling to the floor, her eyes rolling back. The security guard caught her before she hit the ground. "She's faking," he said flatly. The officer wasn't convinced. He pressed his fingers to her pulse. "It's erratic. Could be a panic attack or heart issue." One of the nurses rushed forward, checking her vitals. "She's breathing, but her heart rate is high," the nurse said. "We need to get her on a monitor." I knew exactly what Joyce was doing. She was buying time. If she got admitted as a patient, they wouldn't be able to drag her out in handcuffs. She could argue she wasn't in a state to be arrested. She could delay everything. And the worst part? It was working. The officer sighed. "All right, put her in a room under watch." We'll call a paramedic for transport if needed. I wanted to scream. She was getting away with it. Joyce opened one eye, just barely, looking smug. The officers were falling for it. And Mark? He was still running. The officer who had chased Mark returned, looking pissed. He's gone. Gone where? The other officer asked. Security footage shows him jumping into a car outside. Someone was waiting for him. I felt my stomach drop. What kind of car? Black sedan. No plates. My heart pounded. Mark didn't have friends. He didn't have connections. The only person who would go this far for him was his mother. Joyce had planned everything. Even if she got caught, Mark was supposed to take the baby and leave. The officer turned to me. Mrs. Carter, I need to ask, does your husband have access to your home? The air left my lungs. Yes, I whispered. And suddenly, everything became much worse. Two things happened at once. First, one of the officers pulled out his radio and barked, "We have a potential abduction attempt in progress. Get units to my address immediately. Suspect may be en route." Second, Joyce laughed again, softly this time, under her breath. Like she was enjoying this. I turned to her, rage boiling inside me. "Where is he going?" I demanded. She just smiled. You'll see. She wasn't panicking. She wasn't scared of being arrested. Because she still thought she was going to win. My baby stirred in my arms, her tiny fingers curling into my hospital gown. I held her close. And I swore to myself no one was taking her from me. Not Joyce. Not Mark. Not anyone. The officers were already moving, calling for backup. The hospital was on lockdown. But I knew this wasn't over. This wasn't just a fight over custody anymore. This was a war. And I was ready for it. I didn't have time to process the fact that my husband had just fled. Because I knew exactly where he was going. My home. Mark had a key. He knew the passcode. I had no doubt he had some ridiculous plan to take my baby before I was even discharged from the hospital. Maybe he thought he could still convince me. Maybe he thought he could just walk away with her. But I wasn't going to let that happen. The hospital was already on high alert. The officers were calling for backup. But I wasn't waiting around. I looked at the female officer, Detective Owens. I finally caught her name. "I need to go. Now. You're not in any condition to. I am the only one who can stop him," I snapped. Owens studied me, then nodded. "Let's move." They wheeled me to the hospital exit while another officer ran ahead to get a police car ready. My stitches burned. My body felt weak. But adrenaline kept me upright. As we neared the doors, I glanced back. Joyce was sitting on a hospital bed, still pretending to be fragile. But when she met my eyes, she smiled. Not in fear. Not in regret. But in confidence. Because in her mind, she had already won. The drive felt like forever. Owens was gripping the wheel tightly, her jaw set. "If he's inside, we have the right to detain him. We'll handle it." I wasn't sure what to say. I had no idea what I would find when we got there. Mark had run. He had help. But why? Why was he so desperate? When we finally pulled up to my apartment building, my heart stopped. The front door was wide open. A police car was already there. Another detective, someone I hadn't seen before, was standing on the steps, talking to a neighbor. Owens parked, and we jumped out. "Did you see him?" Owens asked the other detective. "Yeah. He ran inside about 5 minutes ago. He's still in there." My hands were shaking. I didn't even realize I was moving until I was already at the front door. And when I stepped inside, I heard it. A baby crying. I ran down the hallway, ignoring everything else. And then I saw him. Mark was standing in the nursery, holding a bag, my daughter's blanket tucked under his arm. He wasn't holding her, thank God, but he was packing like he thought he had a chance to take her. "Mark." He froze. He turned slowly, his face pale, eyes wide. You weren't supposed to be here yet," he stammered. I took a step forward. "What the hell are you doing?" Mark dropped the bag. I was just, he swallowed. "I thought, say it," I snapped. His lips trembled. His whole body shook. "I thought we could leave before the police got here," he finally whispered. My stomach turned. There it was. The real plan. He wasn't just helping Joyce. He had been in on it the entire time. Mark's hands balled into fists. "She told me you'd understand," he blurted out. "She told me you'd see reason." "Reason?" My voice cracked. "Reason for what, Mark? Stealing my baby?" Mark flinched. "It wasn't like that." "Then explain it to me," I spat. "Explain how you and your psychotic mother planned to erase me. Explain how you were going to take my daughter while I was still in a hospital bed. Explain how this isn't the most disgusting betrayal I've ever seen." He was breathing hard. "She said you couldn't do it," he whispered. "She said you'd struggle. You were sick the whole pregnancy. You could barely stand some days. She said you wouldn't be able to take care of her. She said it would be easier this way." I laughed. Not because it was funny. Because I had no other reaction left. She said, I repeated bitterly. You let your mother convince you that your own wife, your own daughter's mother, didn't deserve to be a parent? Mark opened his mouth, then snapped it shut. Because he knew. He knew there was no excuse for this. I took another step forward, my voice dropping. Tell me the truth, Mark. He swallowed. His eyes darted toward the doorway, toward Owens, and the other detective standing just behind me. You weren't supposed to wake up so soon, he whispered. There it was. The real truth. My heart stopped. Mark looked down, avoiding my gaze. She gave you something, he muttered. After the surgery. She said it would make you sleep longer. Just for a day or two. I went cold. She drugged me. My voice barely worked. Mark's breath came out shaky. She said it was just so you could rest. She told the nurses it was routine. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. Because this wasn't just manipulation anymore. This was planned. She had drugged me. To keep me weak. To keep me from waking up and stopping her. And Mark had let it happen. A deep voice spoke from behind me. That's all we needed to hear. Mark's head jerked up. The detective pulled out his cuffs. Mark Carter, you are under arrest for attempted abduction, conspiracy, and accessory to fraud. Mark panicked. Wait, no, I didn't. The officers moved fast. Mark tried to run. Again. But this time, he didn't make it 2 steps before Owens took him down. In seconds, he was on the ground, face pressed against the hardwood, hands locked behind his back. I just stood there, watching as the man who had promised to love me, protect me, build a family with me, was dragged out of my home in handcuffs. And then I collapsed into the crib, gripping the edge for support. My baby was safe. I was safe. But something inside me was shattered beyond repair. Joyce was charged with medical fraud, attempted abduction, and falsifying legal documents. Mark was charged as an accessory. I filed for sole custody immediately, and I won. The divorce was quick. I never saw either of them again. And yet, their betrayal never left me. Because they didn't just try to take my baby. They tried to erase me. And for the rest of my life, I would always remember, I woke up just in time.